Hello, everyone. So now we're going to start right now. So my name is Adrian. I'm founder of GST. So welcome, everyone, for joining. This is our 17th webinar, actually. And this time we have a different topic. We're going to talk about product development, and we have two great speakers. So I'll just jump right in. So first, we have Hayk Hakobian. He's Bonach Business Developer Manager in the UK. So Hayk is a business expert and advisor in topics related with innovation, strategy, AI, and blockchain to companies globally. Also, Hayk held senior roles of digital transformation and business turnaround around the world, having worked for and with SMEs and multinational companies across Europe, Africa, and in Asia. So how are you, Hayk? How's everything?
I'm good. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. So you are in London right now, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Lockdown in London.
Okay, perfect.
Normally based in Singapore.
Okay, perfect. Hi, thank you for joining. So and also we have Niloufar Sharif. She's the product lead at QHALA. So Niloufar oversees the product development at QHALA's core areas of practice. Prior to QHALA, Niloufar was part of Safaricom Innovation Lab Alpha, leading product management in social payment strategy to complement the overall M-Pesa product portfolio that serves, and it's serving 30 million active users. So how are you, Niloufar? You're still on mute? You're on mute?
Hey guys, how are you? Excited to be here today.
So you are in, if I'm not mistaken, you are in Switzerland, correct?
Currently locked down in Zurich.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. So before we get on to our discussion, Hayk is going to give us a presentation about some of the work he's been doing around behavioral science and product. So before we jump into our discussion and Hayk's presentation, I'm just going to give you a very, very super quick just rundown of what we've been doing in the last few weeks, just in terms of GST in our community. So I'm going to share my screen right now. So you should be seeing it now. So can you see it?
Yep.
Perfect. So just to give you overall, my name is Adrian, and actually I'm stuck right now in Tbilisi, Georgia. So right now the borders are closed. I've been here for 4 months without able to go anywhere. I was in Armenia as well for 2 months. And actually throughout this few months, we've been doing tons of webinars with the GST community, right? And also I've been doing videos regarding like, ecosystems and my travel experience throughout the world. So GST as a community, we've done 100+ events across the world since 2014. Our first event was in New York City. And really our focus is to link up emerging tech communities across the world. And really our core mission is to think how technology can solve and will solve the most pressing problems, especially in emerging tech ecosystems, right? But also, obviously, we focus a lot in creating bridges and links between different countries and ecosystems. So last week, we had a really amazing discussion with 3 panelists on digital transformation and recovery strategy. Actually, we have the link on the YouTube session of the session on YouTube. So I recommend you to check this one out. It was a really great discussion we had. And also, well, GST as a community, we have a platform as well for which, in each and one of our webinars, we try to extract insights and problems that we can basically share with our community. And basically, we're building a chatbot. And through this chatbot, it works as a platform to actually connect the problems with our community and people who can actually solve those problems and bring insights into the platform, right? And we try to gather data on different problems throughout different ecosystems, right? So this is we created a chatbot on Telegram, which I'll be sharing with you in the next the next week or so. So yeah, without further ado, I'll just like to introduce Hayk and Nilofar. As I mentioned, Hayk is going to give a presentation on what you're not thinking about product. So Hayk, if you can take it on from here, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. This is great. Guys, let me just share. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Can everyone see or hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Great. So as Adrian said, I'm going to talk about behavioral science and product. And let me start. So I entitled this as what you don't know about the product. So let's dive right in. A kind of quick introduction. As Adrian says, I'm in charge of BizDev with Vonage. I also co-founded behavioral science informed fintech startup called BizBuzz. Before that, I failed twice and exited once, all in Africa as an entrepreneur. Have been ever since advising portfolio companies at SOSV, which is the biggest VC accelerator in the world, and have been, again, working with multinationals and startups on product innovation, strategy, and specifically on AI and blockchain. Here's a little agenda, guys, on the little disclaimer. So I have a lot of content. So I'm going to go fast. I'll be able to share some parts of this later on after the presentation, but on a demand basis, right? So there's a lot of info here. So bear with me and ask questions afterwards. So about a little bit about basics, then what I call orthodox product thinking, then orthodox results, and unorthodox product thinking, unorthodox results. That's kind of the structure we'll have. So again, not sure about your backgrounds, but in product design, there is basically a very specific kind of orthodox way of going about product, even brainstorming, designing, managing, growing. So let's go with definitions. Product design is a set of strategic and tactical activities from idea generation to commercialization. That's kind of the definition of product design, right? And in a systematic approach, product designers conceptualize and evaluate ideas, turning them into kind of inventions, products, and services. Usual process of product development follows this kind of a process or this kind of flow. I don't want to go into detail, but by and large, it's what I said, right? It starts with some sort of an idea, then there is some opportunity or a problem, then you brainstorm, you come up with some sort of a prototype, then you test it in the market, you go back. And I think a lot of you probably know about this approach, design thinking, which is a kind of a more standard approach as of now. A lot of companies embrace this, a lot of companies use this. So the idea is basically that you're going into some sort of a problem area, you're doing some sort of user research, coming up with personas or sort of a personality types, if you like. And then for those personality types, you are brainstorming ideas and then coming up with some sort of a prototype product or service, testing it, going back again in a circle, and doing the same thing again and again. So in Lean Startup design thinking, there are very specific sets, right? Very logical, rational sets. And I think all of you probably know this process, right? This was initially mainstreamed by IDEO, the product design company. And again, as you probably know, there are two types of, if you like, in broad way, maybe to say two types of innovation, right? There is pull innovation in product and there is push innovation, right? One is basically some sort of a pull base, so there's some sort of a demand, some sort of a need or a problem, and based on that, some sort of a technological or product kind of innovation happens. And then there's a push innovation, which is by and large driven by technology, right? Some sort of a technological invention or innovation happens, and then that innovation or invention is kind of adjusted to whatever the problem or the need is. And of course, the considerations vary from economics to price to appearance, etc. Now, you probably all have seen this, maybe not exactly this image. You probably know that a lot of people, a lot of startups, as well as multinationals undergo a pretty stringent product design and deployment process only only to encounter at the end that there is some sort of a misalignment or some sort of a problem whereby things don't work out. Product doesn't take off. No one really uses it, despite the fact that a lot of time, a lot of resource, a lot of commitment has been done. So this is kind of a typical image of that, where marketing says, well, you said it's an amazing product, and then product guys figure out or go to their research groups or survey groups of personas or tentative customers and say, hey, but you told us this, you told us that, you said this is going to be great product for you, but you're not using it. How come? Right? And here is, and this is CB Insights, here is basically, I think end of 2019, basically this chart is, but it's pretty much the same every year. Top 20 reasons why startups fail. And the same thing would be also applicable for, let's say, multinational products, because they in themselves kind of act as like a startup or some sort of a startup ecosystem as far as the product is concerned, right? So startups fail because number one reason, no market need. Think about it. So you go through all this customer research process, problem analysis, solution, prototyping, etc., only to encounter at the end that there is no market need. How is that even possible? No startup starts doing something completely random, right? And then figuring out that didn't work, right? Usually there is a stringent process, very logical and rational kind of a approach with the steps that are, for example, design thinking or lean startup, etc. And yet, as you see, number one reason, no market need, which kind of is a blow at the face of this kind of logical and rational reasoning, right? Second reason, of course, running out of cash, which is not that relevant in this discussion. Third reason, as well, right? Not the right team. But for example, reasons number 4 and 5, get out competing. Pricing and cost issues are very relevant, right? So all of this should have been sort of part of the product design, but somehow it seems that the results are saying otherwise. So what's happening here, right? So orthodox product methodologies and approaches are very kind of a logical, very stringent, and kind of very otherwise very comprehensive, very solid, and yet you see there are results that are not really proportional to whatever the methodologies are, right? And of course, we know companies like Google, for example, who have a lot of successful products, but do we know that also Google has what's considered around 8 successful products? That's YouTube, Google Map, Google Search, etc., right? But what you might not know is that they have 50 big product failures. So Google is one of the main companies, by the way, that uses design thinking. So what's happening, right? So some of these are the very big kind of notorious flops. So the Virtual Boy is a very famous example. So is Google Glass, so is Quickster, right? All of these guys have followed in one way or another of design thinking and lean startup product approaches, right? So what happened? They followed otherwise the Bible, if you like, of product design or ideation, and then still they fail. So introducing unorthodox product thinking here, right? So what is this? So this is the idea that something happens somewhere. Sometimes you can call it the butterfly effect or whatever you want. Something happens somewhere, and then something else is caused by that irrelevant thing. Let's say butterfly effect is the famous, let's say something happened in Brazil, a butterfly flew, and then in New York Stock Exchange, some problem happened because of that butterfly flying, let's say in Brazil, right? So how is that possible? How is that something that's not logically connected or some kind of a not relevant causes something completely unexpected? So why do I call it unorthodox, at least for now, product thinking, right? So because the orthodox product thinking, whether that's lean methodology, agile, or the more common design thinking, all rely on one simple fact. That simple fact is that everyone assumes that customers are rational, logical, and very straightforward thinking people. And all these logical frameworks and rational approaches that are built exactly with this kind of fundamental assumption that we are rational people, that we do what's best for us, that we have consistent kind of preferences, that we are super objective, and then we basically really evaluate everything on as absolute a scale as it is possible. However, as we know, that's completely not true. Again, I cannot dive into this more detailed here, but the idea is that behavioral sciences basically postulate, and there is a lot of now evidence to show that we don't have consistent choices. We are prone to a number of what's called cognitive biases. So the ways that we think, basically things like, for example, present bias. So we put more emphasis and more focus on the present rather than the future. We're prone to endowment effect, which means that once we possess something, we own something, we think the value of that goes up, regardless of the fact that it was given to us for free or for some other value. So unorthodox product thinking, what would that encompass, right? So quickly here, so there's 8 main points. These are the summaries, right, of these points. Firstly, what customers ask for, and this is exactly to those of you who are design thinkers, right? What customers ask for, what customers pay for, what customers use, and what customers love to have are normally very different things. They are not the same thing. Hence, the whole design thinking fundamentally that's based on rationality doesn't really work, right? Now, product price and availability strongly determine what's going to be the product appetite, right? So depending on the price and availability, you would think if it's a great product, people would go out of the way if the price is right. But no, price and availability make a lot of difference for a product uptake. Problem-solving products are limited in scalability. No strong connection between most game-changing products and most popular product design methodologies. And most important, building virality methodologies make a lot of difference, right? And you'll be surprised. Design thinking, etc., based a lot on value proposition, problem solving, but I'll show you at least one good example of how a completely otherwise useless product has a huge uptake. And of course, the whole concept of Kevin Kelly's Southern True Fans. So again, I'm going very quickly, sorry guys, you can ask questions afterwards. So number 1, customer mentality, right? The point number 1 here. So there is a lot of research, among others, that postulates that, for example, consumers switch from brands if one brand has, for example, more of a purpose, more of a vision than the other. So nothing to do with the product feature, product quality, a problem that the product solves. So there is a lot of different types of statistics around that, how customer mentality is not rational, right? What they say, what they do, what they buy are 3 really different things. For example, this is very obvious in e-commerce companies, right? And this is some research that is posted basically from some of the shopping carts, right? For example, customers onboard the checkout and only to realize that the costs are extra high. I mean, they already bought the product, they are about to check out, but then they realize it's too high. You would think that a rational thinker rational person wouldn't even put it in a shopping basket before going to checkout, right? Things that would otherwise seem irrelevant, like had to create an account. You go there, you choose your product, you are about to pay, it says sign up here or log in here, and then you abandon the whole cart, right? You would think otherwise rationally, that doesn't make sense because rationality theories say that you should be still going ahead and doing this. So, or the fact that there is a long and complex process. If you really want the product, you would probably still go for it, right? Again, based on logical assumptions. So again, not to dwell too much, we don't have time, but the idea is that mentality makes a lot of difference, right? Product price, availability, price and availability and how they play on appetite, right? So for example, a lot of studies showed, and again, this is especially for those of you who are probably in Southeast Asia, Airfrov is a crowd shipping company. So the research from this crowd shipping company and Cathay Pacific, the airline, showed that a lot of people buy Starbucks tumblers. Firstly, that's quite an eye-opener for me when I first found out. But they only buy this when it's easier to buy. It's a very cheap, well, cheap as in I think it's around $10. It's not that cheap, but it's a collector item, right, for a lot of people. And a lot of people only buy this despite the high demand, only if and when it's kind of a easy to get, right? You would think that's not expensive, people would ask and buy, but no, apparently that makes a lot of difference. Also things like, for example, customer loyalty make a lot of difference. And of course, you know this, right? The whole point that, for example, things that are more available to you when you enter a market, things that are right next to the entry or in front of you, have a much better chance of getting attention and getting bought or getting some sort of a usage, right? It's exactly the same for online products. The ones that are perceived as closer or more accessible or available can become more used. And of course, aspects such as, for example, like I was saying, cognitive biases, right? Sunk cost, I think, is something that probably you all heard about, but if you haven't, for example, the fact that you buy shoes that are, for example, expensive, but they are uncomfortable, but you keep on using those shoes and wearing those shoes despite the fact that they are becoming painful for your feet, or renting a movie that you eventually realize you don't want to watch, but you still watch it because you paid for it. That's a sunk cost fallacy, right? Rationally, you would have never done this, but you do this because you have this kind of biases. You have specific patterns of behavior that you do. Third point, problem solving. So everyone in startup world, or not everyone, but a lot of people go into, if you want to have a startup, you have to solve a problem. Well, guess what? If you look at the biggest tech companies in the world, none of them really is solving a problem. Solving a problem is very contextual. It's very difficult to scale a solution to a problem, generally. Look at this side, right? Wants and desires, Instagram, Facebook. What problems are they exactly solving? Not any kind of problems. They are not solving a problem, and I'll show you in a second. And then, of course, there is what you call Uber, which is a one-size-fits-all. This is more of a in the middle. And then there are things which are more problems here, right? Like Faith, which is an e-commerce platform. So the takeaway from this is that the more scalable kind of approach, or the startups that really grow fast, are not the ones who solve a problem, but the ones that address wants and desires. Here is the Maslow hierarchy, and here is the same hierarchy built by Stephen Bradley, design hierarchy of users' needs, right? Wants and desires are the top, and this is where the most attention is paid. The needs and problems are very contextual, they are low level, and they are difficult to scale. And hence, a lot of the big companies, as I said, Facebook, Instagram, Google, etc., they are not solving big problems. They solve maybe a small problem, or they address some sort of a big want or big aspiration. So successful product versus design thinking, right? Again, like if you look at those that are really successful, for example, Instagram, Facebook, Google, a lot of the cases, what you actually deduce from them is that there is serendipity at play, there's trial and error and experimentation, there is some sort of new tech, right? None of this shows a rigid kind of a approach of problem solving and deploying design thinking methodologies. Here, have a look at that. So if you look at the stories, and maybe we don't have time to spend here, but the idea is that none of these companies, Pinterest, Google, or Angry Birds, started because they brainstormed, they did design thinking, they did lean or agile methodology approach, none of that, right? Or this, LinkedIn startups, startup, right? LinkedIn as a startup, they started by basically building a virality into their product. This was beginning of 2000s when importing context or sharing context was completely new. No one had that. So they said, okay, let's do an online CV. What do we do to spread the word? Why don't we enable importing context so that our context would also be able to create a LinkedIn profile? And let's have some sort of a social profile and make it shareable. Okay, that's cool. Let's do that. That's what they did. And these are the two big things that made LinkedIn. There is no design thinking, no customer service, no kind of ideation in terms of, okay, what the customer wants, what the customer needs. This is the process that was followed. I love this example, guys. This is called Yo. Yo is a product that was co-founded by a serial entrepreneur called Moshe Hogeg. What it did was basically, you open the application, as it says in this post here, it took him 8 hours to develop, and it got 1 million users in just 4 days. What it did was, you have a list of people in your application. Once you open it, these are your contacts, and you click on each of them, and then it sends a message called Yo. That's really it. You cannot customize the message. You cannot do anything. It just sends the message called Yo. And that one got shared, that got so viral, it got shared by all the big venture capitalists, technologists, etc. And it got huge media coverage, and guess what? It got acquired, I think, a year after or so for a couple of $1 million. It really is just doing one thing. So explain this to someone, or give this as an example to someone who thinks design thinking is really working so well. There's nothing design thinking-y about this, right? So as I was saying, among other things, behavioral science, right? That really depicts or describes a human being because it considers psychology, sociology, and biological aspects of humans. Humans are only in limited cases in a very bounded way rational. So it's very, very specific rationality in very specific cases when choices are lethal, situation is stable. In every other case, which is 90% of your day-to-day or your life, you're not rational, you are inconsistent, you are prone to all kinds of biases, and you are basically a mess. That's really what the reality of behavioral sciences is. So 2 reasons why behavioral sciences are really relevant here is because we are not rational, and at least in case of behavioral economics, we try to, behavioral sciences really try to complement economic or rational approach of how human beings function and live. So I just want to give this one kind of a use case. I really like that. If you guys know Viagogo is the biggest marketplace for second-hand tickets. This specific platform, I think it's English originally, but now it's in Swiss, I think Swiss-owned or something. It started basically like everyone else, but they use behavioral science to design the entire marketplace, right? And if you see this part here, it shows that, for example, they sold, there was a ticket of Harry Potter play that was worth 140 pounds that was sold for 8,000 pounds. How is that possible on a second-hand marketplace? Usually you'd have cheaper tickets, or sometimes if the item is really, really rare, you'd have maybe a little bit more expensive, but not like 50 times or 60 times more expensive, right? And then there was this, of course, tickets to El Clásico football match, which was listed and which was sold for about 200,000 pounds, right? It's a ticket to a football match. It cannot be so expensive. So why is that? Is because these guys used, and quietly so, because they don't want anyone to sort of use the same breakthrough kind of methodologies from behavioral sciences. They've been using this and they became very, very successful. And of course, they use a lot what's called scarcity primes, right, from psychology. Again, just a good example, you can Google. So this info is taken from an article called How Not to Use Behavioral Economics. You can Google that and find this article about Viagogo. And of course, the last part is Southern True Fans. What this is basically Kevin Kelly came up with the fact with what he called Southern True Fans. The idea is that instead of trying to appeal to a big chunk of the market or a big target group, just try to delight and really make Southern people love your product. Once you do that, you have enough traction for those people to spread the word and basically to get more and more and more people buying into your product, right? And then there is this little example of how Amanda Palmer launched 8 years ago a new album, which at the time was unprecedented, and they raised $1 million because she has a very, very staunch kind of following. And she launched something on Kickstarter. There is 90, I think, what was the statistics? I think it was like 95% of projects don't get they don't get their funding goals, and a lot of them don't even get close to 1 million, right? So this was very, very exceptional, and due to sheer fact that she just had a very good following of people who really helped her raise all this money. So again, every single point I mentioned here flies in the face of product design as an orthodox approach, right? There's no design thinking here. There's no lean methodologies here. It's all these other points. So this 6 products, and again, if you type in Google top 6 most or top 10 most successful products in the world of all time, you'll find these products. This is an iPhone. This is Rubik's Cube. This is Mario, Toyota Corolla, Harry Potter, and Lipitor. So none of these products was conceived or designed using any of the standard methodologies, none. And you can go and read the story of how each of them was conceived, right? But the idea is that they all used some of the methods or a combination of methodologies I just said, right? Whether that's behavioral science, whether that's the Southern True Fans, or whether that's instead of focusing on a problem, focus on a want or aspiration, some of this, right? So these are the unorthodox results. Really, really quickly on the recommendations before I pass back to Adrian. So just a few quick points. Redefine product, including considering behavioral sciences and considering things like, for example, availability, audiences, biases, and social norms, right? Think from first principles. This is, I guess, Elon Musk says this a lot, but think from point of view of game theory, think from point of view of behavioral sciences, and not teach, but at least reconsider using design thinking. Prioritize virality as part of a product as opposed to a marketing campaign. So build features that you think are going to make your product more viral. And don't design, again, with this assumption of people being rational. People are not rational, by and large, are not rational, right? So try to understand your target market behavioral patterns, the biases, etc. that they have, right? And of course, try to make your product loved by thousand fans rather than a lot of people. And yeah, I'll leave you with this. One of my favorite quotes says, "He who thinks he can and he who thinks he cannot are both right." And yeah, my contact details here and some of the top human biases as a bonus for you. Adrian, back to you.
Amazing. That was fantastic. Hayk, thank you so much. So I have a lot of questions, but I would like to wrap them up more towards the end. And if you guys have more questions for Hayk, please type them as well, so we can just consolidate all the questions towards the last 10 minutes of the discussion. So now, thank you so much, Hayk. That was really cool. Now I'd like to jump with Nilofar. So Nilofar, I would love to hear, obviously Hayk talked about many super interesting topics on product design, but I would like to hear your thoughts and jump in terms of what's been sort of your insights and takeaway in terms of lean methodologies, design thinking, and a little bit of what Hayk mentioned regarding, behavioral science, and taking the fact that, humans are primarily rational beings, and the way they decide in terms of selection of products is not in a methodological rational way. So I would like to hear your thoughts on how you approach all this.
Firstly, I think Hayk's presentation was super interesting, and it really puts into context a lot of things I've also been seeing during my years in working on product. And I think what's just really interesting is I really love what Hayk says around moving away from the need to moving towards wants and desires. Because once you start positioning it towards wants and desires, you're able to look at it from a full life cycle process. Because wants and desires starts with the need, right? There's a need for something, but then you build up on top. So it starts with the basic need, say, I need to do X. But in I need to be doing X, I need to also do Y, Z. And when you start you start looking at it from a 360 view, you have a much more what I would say a robust product that is that your users find more appealing. So, and when you go, if you look at it from the other side of the spectrum and just looking at it at one single problem, what happens is you're able to nail that problem in the head very quickly, but then to scale and grow, to allow repetition, allow retention, and allow active usage to your product, it gets very limited. So I think it's really, really important to look at it in a full scale. And I think one thing though, as something I've noticed is, personally, I found a blend of design thinking and using data is the best. I think what happens is when you're starting a product, you need to start looking at product market fit. You're trying to say, will this product even fit in the market? Is there even scope for it? Let's not call it need, let's call it scope. And so when you start doing, let's say, user research, which I'm a big fan of, you're able to view it from an empathetic point of view. Is that, will this product be useful? Will people use this? And will people find need from it? So at base one, when you start also doing user research, you're able to understand the further needs and aspirations of your personas to then go in and build into your product funnel. So so that's the first part, right? And then you can start using existing data. So at Safaricom, where we used to work for, we were the largest telecom in Kenya. And we had a lot of user data. So we started actually by mining that user data and saying, we have a hypothesis of what we think this product is solving, because we were looking at it from a need perspective. But does this show us, does this reflect in our user data? Does this reflect in our GSM data? Does this reflect in our mobile money data, to just validate this in the first place? Right? And then when you go along in different parts of the product development process, you can use the lean methodology, because the lean methodology is saying, build an MVP straight away, test it. You want to just build this, like the most lean, most minimal part of your product to just test product market fit. But I think what happens is, when you start building data funnels into this, you're able to expand much more than the need. So an example, and this is one of the examples I use all the time, is when we started building out our product, we started analyzing data to say, hey, we are in this phase where we now need to start thinking of monetizing this product. we think a certain way of how we should monetize it. But when we started looking at network data, we saw that the way money moves is so different to what we thought, what our biases were. So we were able to redefine even that monetization feature of how we would make money. So I think a blended approach in entirety works best, because at the end of the day, when your product has many stakeholders, you're building for the users, but you also have stakeholders around your product that you need to speak to, be it your CEO, be it your product board. So having a design thinking methodology really cleans out your need, your aspiration, and the why around the product. And then when you start looking around data and how you're building those funnels, it says, what about the product are you building? What are you starting with? What's in your roadmap? How are you scaling? And what's your overall plan of where this product is going to reach?
That's super interesting. I love when you add the data element, because obviously that's a fundamental principle, right? So gathering as much data from each touch point, right? User touch points. And obviously there's the analytics, right? All the frameworks and SDKs that will allow you to basically monitor all touch points and extract meaningful data, right? So what's some of the, and this is, I think I would just like to ask you, you know, how do you marry the two of them, you know, like a way to design a product that people love and like to use, and basically touches on a specific want and desire, but at the same time pairing the data, right? Maybe does the data supports that you're actually hitting a desire or need, or the data is telling you something else, and should you reiterate and change features? So how do you envision, you know, the positioning of data versus wants and desires, and what the data tells you versus like your approach on the design? I like to throw it at you first, Niloufar, and then you can take on.
That's an interesting question. And I just, you know, I love that, like, human beings are not rational. We are not rational when we think. But what I think, the way I like to take a step back and look at it on entirety, right? So you look at the whole product lifecycle process, and you're starting with, what are we solving for? What is the need? What is the desire? What are the aspirations? Like, who and what are we solving for? And once you already start once you actually do research and you collect information around it, you have some clear touch points of why you're doing what you're doing. You've either seen something in the market that's not working well, you've seen something existing that you think you could digitize. So there are a lot of these initial, I would say, qualitative data points, which come in from like a lot of interviews, consumer data, to see what are we solving for. And then when you start, I love doing sprints. So I love believing in sprints. So when we start doing the sprint process and we come up with, okay, this is the prototype, this is the MVP we're looking at, we start working on that. So in that, from the decision to make the MVP to build, I like looking at multiple touch points, right? So we can take that MVP and go back to our user base and test via like low fidelity prototypes to say, is this even working? Does this garner some sort of excitement? And then as we start building, in every touch point of the product, we're collecting data. So an example is, we're going to be launching one of our products really soon. But what we started doing was already start testing out wording via our link up page. So we started circulating a link up page of people for people to sign up. And in that, we had like A/B testing where we had 2 different links sent out. And we've seen which text garners the more positive response. So like, those are just small things you could do in your product. And then when you start building out from your onboarding to, so when you've launched your product, you have different steps for a user to do their call to action. So an example is, even in onboarding, we've started testing, where does the user drop off? Like, even in the onboarding page, where does a user drop off? And when we go back to the user, we then find out, is it a design problem or is it a fundamental problem with our product and how we're collecting our information?
Right. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
No, but it's I think it's interesting, you know, like a fundamental why issue versus, you know, the UI UX problem, right?
Yeah.
Or there's some friction points there.
On marriage, I think good design supports your problem, because if it's really easy and really seamless, and you don't have to think twice to doing your call to action, you've nailed it. And when you think about, when you look back, you see there are different small touch points which really cause a huge issue in your product. And I'll give you another example. We're trying to do a product for SMEs. So in our onboarding, we know regulatory, on a regulation level, there's certain documents required. So our first instinct was to add that already on the onboarding, but we saw huge drop-offs. So we needed to go back and say, is this a design issue? Is it an onboarding issue? What is the issue? And upon understanding and speaking to our users, we realized a lot of people don't have it on hand. They don't either want to share this information because there's no trust for the platform. So now we've gone back to redesign our user journey to make sure that we're thinking of the user at heart and making it as easy as possible for them to come onto the platform, and then allowing levers for them to be engaged on the platform. So separating the both. So that's just an example, but I think when you look at it and the whole process, there's so many examples you can look at just to tweak, to make to optimize your product for your user and then for your business.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I love that your take on this. Thank you so much, Nilufar. So, Hayk, do you have any comments on that, and also a few other comments regarding your presentation? Right. You also mentioned, I mean, maybe you can address some of the stuff that Nilufar mentioned in terms of data and marrying data with behavioral economics, and how will that work? And
yeah,
also,
that's exactly. I mean, I don't think I mentioned. I focused a lot on saying data, but a lot of these approaches indeed have data at their heart. So that's one. I think, guys, if you zoom out and look at it, it's not. What I presented is basically different methodologies or a combination of this you can use. But one thing I really love using is, for example, I've been doing gamification consulting since now 9 years. But one thing that I love using from gamification playbook, if you like, is that you build a product based on specific biases or behavioral patterns your target has, right? Like a simple example, a simple, very boring example is, for example, UK government, right? In 2009, I think this book Nudge came out. That was embraced by David Cameron and UK government, and they said, okay, we need to use this methodology of nudging, right? To collect taxes, right? As boring an example, this is not some high-end tech and stuff. They said, we have, I think at that time they had around £3 billion in arrears of unpaid, basically, taxes, and they've been trying to collect and nothing was working out. So then this Richard Taylor, the co-author of the book, comes in as an advisor and says, okay, what's your channel of communication? So they show him a piece of paper. It's a one-pager that says you are delinquent, you haven't paid your taxes for I don't know how many years. And it turns out the success of responding or payment is there, like 0.whatever% every year. So he says, okay, can I just tweak here a text? So he adds basically something along the lines of, and again, you can Google and see this, along the lines of saying 90% of your neighbors have already paid the taxes of your specific neighborhood. It mentions the neighborhood and it says your neighbors in this neighborhood already paid. You know the difference it made? I think in 6 months, they collected, if I recall, around 30% of all outstanding taxes for the last, I think, 5-6 years. Small difference, right? What that played on, that part that says your neighborhood paid, so in psychology, there's something called image motivation. Image motivation is basically something we all know, right? It's the fact what people think of us. What we don't know is that there is a solid psychology behind this. So he basically tapped on that and on what's called social proof. Right? It says that everyone in your neighborhood, because people are proven, they are psychologically wired to care about their neighborhood, their tribe, their family. So people in your neighborhood all paid, but you haven't. What that make all the other people who receive this letter do is say, okay, everyone in my neighborhood paid, shit, I have to pay. And small things like this, right? Yeah. Small tweaks like this can make a lot of difference. He didn't reinvent, he didn't go digital. He just added 2-3 sentences. So why I love this is because a lot of behavioral science approaches, for example, and I don't use just behavioral science, but behavioral science is a low effort, high impact. Yes. If you marry that with with data, of course, that you collect, then it makes it easier for you not just to hypothesize on stuff, but actually to try and see how things work. And one thing I love doing, and in Southeast Asia, this is something that like I advised some of the companies, some of the multinationals in financial industry. So A/B testing, as Nilüfer says, is pretty common, pretty standard. Everyone does this. But one limitation of A/B testing is because it's very difficult to really nail down which specific part of that different A and B copies really made a difference. So the approach that now is kind of trickling down to business from science and medicine is what you call randomized controlled trials and different types of that, right? What it helps you do is really have a control group, and then you have one feature in one trial, one feature in another, and you control based on this, right? You change one little thing in this in the two different test modes, and then you see with the control. So I mean, one thing that's really good is, again, you marry, like Nilüfer says, data, and you use some of the methodologies. I mean, you can even use, so Uroji is saying, should we throw away design thinking? Design thinking is a way of thinking. It's just that, to me, the detail is not necessarily as correct as it is, right? You can still brainstorm. You have to brainstorm either way. You have to figure out what customers want. It's just maybe you don't have to go ask customers, or you can ask, but take that as one of the inputs, not the only input, because assumption here is that I tell you exactly what I want and I'm going to want and pay for it. That's just incorrect. Mm-hmm. That's incorrect by all means, right? So you can still figure out what customer wants, but maybe not take all his input or her input as it is. Yeah, it's just one of the inputs that they said they want this, but what they really want is something else. I don't know. Right. So build human psyche related things, for example, and build virality related things in your product. And my advice is you can do A/B test, or if you are a bit more sophisticated or you want to really have more accurate results, plus you can do multiple, like you can do factor analysis, not just change one or two small things, but you can have a control and change 2-3 things at the same time and really have an objective view of which of those 2-3 things specifically gave what result, right? So you can achieve that only using RCT tests. And then iterate, right? You can still do your design thinking, iterate, come back, prototype again. But short of that skeleton framework, I would say probably try and skip most of the specific details. You can still use it, yeah.
Very interesting. So then, if you have anything to that on top of that, because
I think what I want to say is I really like what you said about the RCT, and that's a really interesting approach. I think what I would say is, if you look at it from a lean startup, is to prioritize where and how important that is to your product. Because if it's an e-commerce site, what he's saying is extremely important, because your conversion to call to action is really high. But maybe in a different instance where you're testing it, it might not be as important in terms of what your feature set and what your product goal is. So I think it's a really, it has to be a balance on where you are at your product and what your goal is. But I think it's a very interesting approach. And you're right, A/B testing is really common, but I think it's also really important to say at which parts it's important and what parts are you just saying, we're going lean, we're just going to do it, we'll see what happens, and then we'll iterate after launch. So I think when you look at it in the overality of how it affects, let's say, your dev cycle or your launch cycle, then you need to just make those decisions and cater to where the highest priority is.
Interesting. And yeah, no, I definitely, because I'm actually a software developer, right? So I've built many products, and what I do find interesting, what Hayk is mentioning, is definitely, in terms of the orthodox thinking, does not include a lot of the irrational elements of human behavior, right? And basically incorporating those in design thinking, it's really kind of out of the traditional frameworks of how you build and iterate products, right? So I think you discover that throughout the years, that you basically discover, okay, people react to this little thing, which is unusual, and you're like, why? It's so weird. And then you iterate on top of that, right? So, but you don't follow a specific methodology of saying, okay, what are some of the, pyramid of needs, and then which desire or aspirational psychological aspect I'm hitting in terms of the user, core user base that I'm trying to please, right? So it's essentially that.
And I think the way you could look at it is also look at it in terms of your roadmap. So you've started off with something, and then how do you leverage what Hayk is saying to build on your roadmap? So as you're starting to grow your product, how are you starting to think about prioritizing your features based on these behaviors I've spoken about? And then how do you expand those features into your product to actually gain more virality and more usage from your existing customers and new customers. So I think it's never a lost cause. It's around how are you leveraging that data to build on, and how are you leveraging those behaviors to then build on your product. So it's never either or, it's always like you're moving forward. You're like trying to build a road. So first you remove all the land, all the plants, and then you start building in your cement. I think that's how I would view it. And that's when I think, so even if you start off with design thinking completely, now that you know this, it's really important to go back and say, how do I look at my existing way today? And how do I start building that for the future?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Just actually, before we continue, guys, if you guys would like to share your contact details, your LinkedIn and your email on the chat, that would be amazing. So if anybody has any questions and follow up, they can do so. And so yeah, Hayk, I have a few thank you for that, Nilfar. Thank you. A few follow-up questions, and then we can just wrap up. We have 10 more minutes. One is on, you mentioned the marketplace, like a real market, like a physical market, is the products that are closer sell best, and then you mentioned the products online that are closer sell best as well, right? You mentioned, I have a question, like what do you mean exactly products being closer online? That's one question. And the second one is there a specific vertical that the principles could be applied best in terms of industry, right? Or you think these principles could be applied to many different products, from e-commerce to like AI application, medical AI application? You think the same approach could work for different verticals?
Yeah, so let me start with the second one. It's just as faster to approach to respond. So I think this is, by the way, so I completely agree with Nilofar. It really makes a difference where you are in the product stage, and really, you don't have to take on a blanket, like use all this or the same thing at every stage. To come to that response, so because a lot of what I've been talking about is based on kind of a human wiring, right? So it's really industry agnostic. It doesn't really matter which industry you target, as long as you understand. By the way, the problem also with behavioral sciences and a lot of this unorthodox thinking is that this is knowing something like this is something, and using it's completely different. It's not like mathematics, which is, if you know mathematics in Africa, it's the same mathematics in New Zealand, right? If you know equations, theoretically, you can use them. Unlike that, social sciences or behavioral sciences are not like this. A lot of people know things, but it's very hard to apply. So applying these sciences in real life is a whole different ballgame in itself. Knowing is not enough. And again, like why I'm saying this is because, a lot of this is based on human, basically cognitive biases, social norms, or cognitive styles and whatever. And it's applied in every industry, in brief, right? Now, which one would be applied where? That's like a case-by-case sort of a situation where we can see, for example, if some of you have specific cases, then we can see. But by and large, it's about figuring out who you are targeting and with what, and then understanding what makes them tick, right? If you like, and what kind of nudges or what kind of other effects they might respond to or trigger, right? And then designing for that. That's really what it is, and that could be by and large also considered design thinking approach or methodology. About your first question about accessibility, so for example, that specific example that I gave you the idea was that Airfrog is basically like Airbnb, right? People who travel somewhere, some other people say, oh, okay, I want something from Tokyo. And then that person who comes from Tokyo says, okay, sure, I'll bring it for you. And then there is an exchange, right? And then the person who brings it, he gets paid. So what was shown was that requesters, let's say people who request a tumbler, right, a Starbucks tumbler, they have more success of getting it if they request a tumbler from a central area of a specific city which is, let's say, accessible, right? So if you ask me, I'm the bringer. If you ask me to bring you something that requires me to go to slums of London or I don't know, somewhere really far, chances, even if it's a really good item, I won't go. Even if you pay me a lot, I will not go. So as long as I perceive what you ask me as accessible and let's say convert that to the product thing, right? As long as I can access your product, I don't have to click 3 times, for example, for some of the e-commerce shops, or I don't have to click 3 times to just message you or like your content or share your content. As long as it's not something that's really making me in my head do a lot of effort just so I can access what you want me to access, I will access it, right? As long as you make it easier. Maybe the keyword is easier, right?
Yeah.
In context of a product, you may have to make things easier and more sort of either pop-ups or like a link, but you don't have to ask me to fill in the form, then keep on saying next page, next page, next page, I'm gonna drop off, right? And this is very common when people ask you to fill out whether that's application to funding or whatever that is, or a loan or anything. They like one thing that made a lot of difference, by the way, in this kind of cases is when you show progression. This is another kind of a thing. When you show progression bar in asking a user to do something, it has to be clear how they are progressing. This is a very clear psychological effect. When I see where I am and how much is left.
Yes.
99% of forms, etc., that you fill do not have this, especially the lengthier ones that ask you 20 fields, 20 things, then you click next, and it's another 20 things, and you have no idea where you are. Drop off from this sort of things, whether that's a funding application or a loan or applying for an event or whatever, is very high because people are wired to want to know at least where they are in the process, right?
Yes.
So all of these things are accessibility points, right? Because I need to be perceiving your product or whatever you want me to do in your product as accessible. If you make it really difficult by putting a lot of hot points or a lot of clicks or a lot of fill in this, fill in that, to me, I convert this, translate this as not available. That's really how it works.
Perfect. Cool. So we're gonna have to wrap up. Any closing comments, Hayk, before we just?
No, I think I spoke really a lot. I think, yeah, guys, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I pasted my link over there. And yeah, happy to follow up with some of you if you have any questions.
Perfect, Hayk. Thank you so much. That was really great. Thank you so much for joining. And we'll, like I mentioned, we'll post this on YouTube. This whole conversation we'll share with our whole network, and I'll post it on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Hayk. So Nilüfer, any additional comments you might have? And also people are asking about M-Pesa, you know, like what made M-Pesa successful and how come, you know, they're asking why they're not into B2B space and mobile payments through mobile payments, you know, a little bit about M-Pesa. They're curious, you know?
So I want to say something. I'm now in Zurich, and I'm trying to explain to people what M-Pesa does. And I think it's so crazy that people are talking about fintech in these markets where there's fintech in Kenya where like I don't need to travel with my wallet because my mobile number is my wallet. I don't need to have a card. It's so easy for me. And I took for granted how easy it is for me in Kenya making a payment as compared to Switzerland, where it's still very cash heavy. So M-Pesa started off as a use case, I think 18 years ago, where you wanted to send money home, right? People were sending money. And in time, it's grown to the market dynamics of Kenya, because Kenya is a really cash heavy place and it's incredibly hard to get a bank account just from like a fundamental block level. So what happened is it's so easy for you to register and get an M-Pesa line. And with that, they started with P2P payments. So I could send you, Adrian, money. I didn't need to go to a bank. I didn't need to have cash. And with time, they've built up aspects of M-Pesa, like an agent network, B2B payments. I think through Lipa na M-Pesa, someone had asked that question. You can do B2B payments now, but it's just an ever-growing journey because M-Pesa has now become a platform where now there are different products. So there's a B2B layer, there's a B2C layer. You can now make payments. But like they've now they've allowed APIs for companies to actually now integrate and then do push notifications. So I think there's just a lot of development around that. But it just started off with one use case. And this is what we were saying with Hayk. It started off with this one aspect, but through data, we've seen different use cases and different gaps in the market that have been built upon. So it's just
which are? Just
the gaps in the market?
Yeah.
So right now, the fundamental gap is how hard it was to actually just get a bank account.
Yeah, getting a bank account, yes.
Getting a bank account. People were storing money in their cupboards.
Yep.
So M-Pesa provided the value proposition of an easier way to send money and an easier way to store money. Yep. And then they noticed, okay, but people are now using it for business, but I can't be sending money onto my mobile number as a business. So I'm going to create Lipa na M-Pesa to give a business identity on the M-Pesa network.
Right.
So now you're able to now do like B2 M-Pesa, Lipa na M-Pesa, or pay bill. You're able to do different use cases like collection of money, sending money abroad. So now there are different use cases, but this is through data where you've seen the different needs that have come up as to how are people using money and how would they like to use money through M-Pesa, and how is M-Pesa as a platform making it more seamless for me to get to my point A and point B.
Yes. No, thank you so much. Yeah, actually, I had a discussion with Bob Cullimore in 2016 in New York. Actually, we had a panel then in New York City. He unfortunately died, but yeah, he had a pretty interesting discussion on M-Pesa and everything else. Cool. Thank you so much. Any closing comments you like to share? Any thoughts, ideas before we close it?
No, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I've added my LinkedIn if there are any more questions. But just really interesting to chat, and just also really interesting to listen to Hayk. And it's really nice to see how different aspects and how the product space is evolving so quickly. And every day there's just new aspects around how to optimize it better.
Perfect. Anyway, thank you so much, Nilofar. Thank you so much, Hayk, for your time and sharing with our community. I will be posting this on YouTube and share with our whole network so people can review, and because obviously there's so many things, so many topics we touched on. So yeah, I think the best approach is put it on YouTube, and then we'll share with all our community through, our weekly newsletter and everything else. But thank you everybody for joining. Thank you so much, guys. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Okay, thank you, guys. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.